This is WBNY 91.3. We're out here on Elmwood Avenue today for our second episode of Let's Talk Buffalo. Today's episode will focus on the mayoral election. Okay, we're here at Cafe Aroma right off of Elmwood, and we are about to interview... What's your first name?
Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay. I'm Joanna. So, will you be voting in the upcoming election for Buffalo Mayor?
I will if I can find some time to learn about the candidates beforehand. I've seen some ads and stuff saying negative things from one candidate about another, but I don't usually buy into those too much, and so that's really my only level of familiarity.
We are talking about the upcoming mayoral election, and are you going to vote in it?
Yes.
And who is your choice?
India. I just can't wait to see the change, if she does get elected, see what she changes in Buffalo and stuff.
Who will you be voting for and why?
Byron Brown, because he's the better person.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
He's got lots of experience.
I'm going to be voting for India Walton, yeah.
I think she's far too young. I'm not bragging that I'm a college graduate, I went to college, but my consensus of hers is she's just too young.
I've met her personally when she was doing a lot of community work in the Fruit Belt, and yeah, everything that she stands for. She's young, she's vibrant, she's fresh.
You definitely have to vote, right? I'm a retired Marine, right? After 22 years in the Marines and being in combat, I moved back to Buffalo. I've only been back 5 years, but since I've been back, you notice all the changes, abandoned buildings, just the trash, just the things that's going on around in the neighborhoods, the crime. Byron Brown, I won't say he hasn't been a bad mayor, but over the past few years, and really over the past 10 years or so, I've just seen it just decline. It's like he doesn't care anymore. And if she's going to promote a little change, let's give her a chance.
My name is Brittany Whalen, and we're here on WBNY 91.3, Buffalo State's student-run radio station. Before I start this interview, we just want to be clear that we reached out to the Byron Brown campaign for an interview as well, and we have not heard back in time for this program.
Hi, my name is Kate Malalay, and I am a senior at Buffalo State College, majoring in English and journalism. I'm also the founder of the blog typeawaykate.blogspot.com, and I'm the news editor for the Buffalo State Record, a student-run news outlet.
It's Sunday, October 17th, and we're here at mayoral candidate India Walton's campaign office on Ellicott Street. And first off, I just wanted to ask, how are you?
I am well. I am excited to be talking to you today, and thank you so much for coming by.
Of course, I'm so excited. So I'm curious, I have a couple of questions. Your number one priority is safe neighborhoods. Tell me about your mobile crisis team initiative.
Sure. So mobile crisis teams are civilians who are trained in mental health response, and that is going to be our first line of defense rather than calling armed officers who we know have a tendency to escalate when a person is decompensating and experiencing a mental health crisis. We want people who are going to be able to de-escalate and diffuse those situations before they turn violent or dangerous.
So when I was in school, I remember seeing and recognizing the police officers rather than knowing the school counselors. Tell me about your plans to add more mental health counselors to the Buffalo City School District.
Yeah, so while the mayor's office doesn't have explicit purview over the schools, the city can do things like support organizations like Say Yes, who currently have mental health counselors in the schools, and just making sure that mental health services are accessible not only to students, but also to their parents and family members. Over the course of the last year, we've experienced a lot of trauma as a community, not to mention a lot of the negative impacts from concentrated poverty and disadvantage. And I just want to be a really proactive champion for allowing people the space and the grace to be able to talk about how those things have impacts on our mental and physical health.
I was really inspired when I was reading about your policy goals involving safety from gender violence and sexual assault. All too often, people are stuck in reoccurring violent situations with their partner because they don't have the resources to get them and their children out of that situation. What are your plans to streamline resources for people in need?
I think that there is an important role as a survivor that I'm going to play as the first woman to be mayor of the city of Buffalo, and that number one is having these conversations publicly and letting folks know that it's okay to ask for help and that help is available. I am so excited to be coming into this position at a time where our county legislature has April Baskin at the helm, and together we're going to make sure that we're going to work with the Department of Social Services to make sure that appropriate and timely resources are available for people who are needing help to rebuild their lives after intimate partner violence and sexual assault. And that includes, folks of all gender identities and sexualities as well. We know that intimate partner violence, there's no one group of people that suffer.
Definitely. No, I totally agree with that. It can be anyone who's dealing with violence in any type of situation. I want to jump into something a little bit different. According to 2021 reports, there has been an uptick in gun violence in Buffalo. What is your response in adequately addressing the rise in gun violence?
That's a great question. Actually, before you got here, we were just planning for a visit from some friends of ours from downstate called Life Camp. Life Camp is a program that was founded by a woman named Erica Ford, and it teaches a peaceful lifestyle, right? A lot of our response to gun violence is just that. It is a response. And we have not done enough to proactively prevent folks from wanting to commit harm against one another in the first place. So I'm excited that Life Camp is going to be here on Tuesday with their Peace Bus. And I'm excited for folks to be able to experience that firsthand, because those are the types of initiatives that we want to see in a Walton administration. How we lead with love and care and set a culture that says that violence against one another is unacceptable. And it starts there, but there are also very practical ways that we reduce violent crime. Provide people with a decent living wage job. Reduce opportunities by improving the built environment, making sure that our streets are well lit, making sure that the cameras that do exist for surveillance are actually operational, and make sure that we're establishing trusting relationships between our police and community members so people feel empowered to speak up when they need to.
So this is a question I really want to ask. All too often, we hear stories about citizens not being able to afford healthcare or prescriptions under our for-profit healthcare system. As a nurse, you've probably seen and heard a lot more about this issue than anyone else I know personally. Within your powers as mayor, what will you do on a local level to advocate for the health and well-being of Buffalonians?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes scary to think of the actual limitations of the mayor of Buffalo, but there are few people who have the potential to be more influential. So I have always been a strong advocate for the passage of the New York Health Act. I'm going to continue to advocate strongly and use my influence to work with our state legislators to be able to move that forward. And also at the federal level, continue to advocate for Medicare for all. I think it's vitally important. I'm a person who believes that healthcare is a human right, and to know that there are folks who are suffering because someone needs to maintain their bottom line is just disturbing to me.
Okay, so moving into our next question, you identify as a democratic socialist, but you say Mayor Byron Brown uses that term against you. Can you define democratic socialism in your words and what it means to you?
Sure. First, let's start by saying the first word is Democrat. I'm a democratic socialist. I've been a Democrat my entire life. But I think AOC said it best. All Democrats are not created equal. And knowing that this city has been under Democratic leadership for this long, and we still see the poverty that we see, especially childhood poverty, I needed a way to communicate with people that I am not just going to be another Democrat who is preferring wealthy corporations and developers over everyday working class people. So being a democratic socialist to me means that I am going to lead and govern for and by the people, that I am a servant, and that is the role, in my opinion, of government. And I look forward to deep democracy and co-governance with the residents of the city of Buffalo.
As someone who really cares about Medicare for all, it is my number one policy goal as a concerned citizen. You are a nurse and political activist. Do you have any ideas of how Buffalonians can act on the local level to push for an expansive policy goal like that?
If I have learned anything over this last year, is that we matter a lot, and our voices matter, and a lot of what we see out of our elected officials, sometimes their failure to act is a result of not feeling enough public pressure. And, for as much as we love a good protest, those phone calls to your legislators, those letters, those emails, they matter. And when we create the political will that means inaction is unacceptable, then we see changes begin to be made. And, I also just want to encourage people, if we want to see policies that we believe in pushed forward, run for office. If your legislator is not voting in a way that you feel like is in your best interest, run.
I might have to. I probably won't. I'm just kidding. But I had to ask that question because I feel like pushing it upwards, like towards the presidency, to get them to actually pass something so expansive across the country has somewhat become impossible. And so I guess that question kind of came from a place of like, it's going to have to come from a place at a lower level all the way up to like the state level.
And the thing that's interesting to me about electoral politics, right, as opposed to organizing and activism, is that the goal is to win an election. And a lot of us feel like once our candidate has won, our job is done. But that's when the real work begins. We have to hold folks accountable to deliver on their promises if we're ever going to see anything change.
Totally. I feel that. So this actually kind of leads into the next question. I know myself and many others have felt discouraged to reach out to their local representatives because they feel incredibly inaccessible. As mayor, what are your plans to make yourself accessible to the public?
I'm gonna be around. I still very much do all of the normal things that I would. When folks reach out to the Walton administration, someone's gonna show up. And not only that, but we are going to take our Department of Citizen Engagement and turn it outward. We're not gonna wait for people to call and complain. We're gonna go out and into the community, visit Black clubs and neighborhood associations, and canvass and ask folks what their concerns are right now today. Even on doors, our campaign is not only about encouraging people to vote for me, but asking what are the issues that matter most to you, so that we have that information moving forward and really are able to prioritize how we care for the community once we assume office in January.
I know that you decided to run like a while back, but what was the initial reason? Did you have was it like a thing that you just kind of decided bit by bit, or what did you just wake up one morning and said I just gotta run, or how did it happen?
Over the last half decade, I've been involved with several advocacy groups trying to, move policy through city government, and just feeling a lot of frustration that we have great ideas and weren't able to get things done, right? But I think it all came to a head the summer before last. Middle of a pandemic, I was executive director of the land trust, right, working on housing, but having folks in the Fruit Belt neighborhood call me and say, we need food. Or, can you call somebody and help me get my water turned back on? And I'm like, in the middle of a public health crisis, there are people in the city who don't have running water. So it was that sort of failure of leadership. And then also the response after the uprisings, young people in the streets begging our leadership to do something about police misconduct, and having those calls go unanswered, and watching our mayor on national television defend the police after they pushed a 75-year-old man down, and having the world watch him bleed on television, and no one was held accountable. I said, I have to do something. If I don't do something, I cannot justify continuing to raise my children in this place where poverty is still an issue, where there's lack of housing, lack of opportunity, and lack of leadership. So I talked to my friends who helped co-organize a lot of the protests and said, I think that we're gonna try and turn this protest power into some political power. Let's see what happens. And here we are.
Hi, Ms. Walton.
Hi.
So I just wanted to ask, for the Market Town Hall, how come it was canceled? That between you and Mayor Byron Brown with the Fox 29?
The debate.
Yeah, the debate.
Yeah, so Byron Brown is not on the ballot. I am more than willing to debate, but I don't think that he should get preferential treatment over the other write-in candidates. There are lots of folks who are saying they're writing in, so how is there a debate between he and I when I am the endorsed Democratic nominee? I am the only person who's on the ballot, so how does he get an opportunity to debate me and other people do not? And I think the other reason is that the first debate at the Merriweather Library, he didn't talk about issues. He talked about me. He spoke poorly of me. It was disparaging and disrespectful. And the voters need to know what the plan is for our future. And if we're not talking about that, I'm not going to continue to allow space for the personal attacks.
Thank you.
All right. So my last question. We did a segment on Let's Talk Buffalo a week ago, and we asked folks on Elmwood about the upcoming mayoral race and who they would vote for. Some critics claim you may be too young to be mayor.
I think she's far too young. She's just too young.
What do you have to say to those critics, and do you think being younger gives you an advantage?
I wonder how young people think I am. I'm 39.
You look amazing.
Thanks. So my natural reaction to that is I'm not that young, but I accept that as a compliment, I guess. But also, I've had a very diverse set of life experiences. And when folks say that I'm too young or too inexperienced or I've made too many mistakes, I think that those are all good reasons why I would make a good mayor. I've had some challenges and I've had to be a good problem solver. I've had to work with lots of people to get things accomplished in my personal and professional life. And I think that young folks are the future of this country, of this state, and of this city. And it's time that we stop doing things like we've always done them and do something different. And youth and the vigor and the intellectual class and the arts and culture community are going to be the forefront of leading us into the future of a better Buffalo.
Right on. I totally agree with that. And I've felt kind of discouraged as a younger person occasionally.
We are ordinary folks who are capable of doing extraordinary things, and we can really do extraordinary things when we do them together.
All right. With that being said, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for giving us this interview.
Thank you.
is Tanya Gamble representing WBNY, and I'm here with Bruce Brittany, political commentator and professor at Buffalo State College. Brittany, nice to be here with you.
Nice to be here with you.
Can you provide some context or perspectives on the upcoming mayor election?
This election is very unique. It's going to be interesting. We've got, instead of a Democrat running against a Republican, we've got two Democrats. And interestingly enough, the incumbent, who is probably most recognized of the two, Byron Brown, the current mayor, he is in for quite a battle here. Because quite frankly, during the primary, and the reason he lost the primary is he really didn't put up much of a campaign. He thought he had it in the bag, and now he's paying the consequences. So what's going to happen in this race is that if people want to vote for him, he needs to have people do a write-in vote, and it's very rare for a candidate to win a write-in vote.
What do you think his chances are?
At this point, 50-50, and here's why. There's two things that he's got going for him. One is that he's the incumbent, and that means, and he's been around a long time. And so what happens then is he's recognizable. And you know, with Mayor Brown, either you like him or you don't like him, okay? And the other thing is that there are some people who won't vote for India Walton because they perceive her, you know, the bad word socialist, right? And so, you know, there's going to be a lot of people who just simply won't vote for her because of that. And the other thing she has going against her is that she's not a recognizable face. In fact, I'm really into politics. And, you know, 2 years ago, if you would have told me, you know, India Walton, I had no idea who she would have been. But now she's getting more media coverage and more attention. And, you know, she turned out the vote in the primary, and that's why, you know, she's right in the middle of this race. Especially on it's important for us locally, especially if you live in the city of Buffalo, all of Western New York, but it's also important nationally. And here's why. People like the Democratic Party on the national level is really split right now. So you got people like Joe Biden, who is kind of moderate, you know, he's a little bit more conservative. But you got people like Bernie Sanders and AOC, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, who are way more liberal, and who actually call themselves democratic socialists. And so those two parts of the party, those two factions are kind of going at each other. Now, as far as this race, Brown would be siding more with the conservative types or the moderate, and India Walton would be very liberal. She's called herself a democratic socialist. That word scares people away. But so that's why it's so important on the national level. If India Walton wins this, that means that at the national level, the Democratic Party is taking another step to the left, much more liberal than what they are now, or like the person who's in the White House right now. So that's why this is kind of important, and that's how AOC got elected. You know, she took this really liberal stance, and she's gonna, you know, she came to town to support India Walton, and you know, basically she's gonna kind of talk about being a little bit more liberal and a little bit more socialist than Byron Brown.
Thank you for listening to our second episode of Let's Talk Buffalo, a student-run program with WBNY 91.3 SUNY Buffalo State. Tune in to our next episode in November.